We live in a world with many ways of knowing, with many different systems of knowledge. But he who believes he cannot be deceived is in great danger, and this trick is a perfect example of that, as it can fool even the most confident of spectators. This is the impossible card trick. The magician takes a borrowed deck of shuffled cards and shows that they are all different. He asks the spectator to choose any card that they like. This is a free choice. The magician then takes this card and puts it back into the middle of the deck. He places the deck onto the table, showing that there are no hidden breaks and the card is actually in there. After that, he then starts shuffling the cards. He then turns over the top card, showing the spectator that their selection is not on top. He also shows the spectator the bottom card, showing it's not there either. The card is lost somewhere inside the deck. The magician then puts the cards onto the table and asks the spectator to cut them in half. He asks the spectator to point to a pile. In this case, the spectator pointed to the pile on the right hand side. The magician starts to lay the cards out one by one on the table, creating 4 shapes. All of these cards have been shuffled and chosen by the spectator. The rest of the cards are removed. The spectator is then instructed to point to any 2 piles that he likes. The spectator points to these 2 piles. The spectator is then asked to point to just one pile. He points to this pile here. Each of these choices is free and is completely the spectator's decision. This then leaves him with 4 cards. He's told to point to 2 cards. Those 2 cards are removed. Finally, the magician tells the spectator to push one card towards him and leave the other card where it is. The spectator pushes the left card towards the magician, eliminating it with the others. Despite the cards being shuffled, and despite the spectator making all the decisions, the only card left is the spectator's selection, the 10 of spades. The secret to this effect is very simple, as the trick is practically self-working. Take a deck of shuffled cards and let the spectator choose any card that they like. Whilst they're looking at their card, get a pinky break under the top card. When putting the spectator's card back in the deck, start pushing it into the middle and then slide it into the break between the top card and the rest of the deck. This will mean that the spectator's card is second from the top, but the break will make it look like you're pushing the card right into the middle of the deck. You can now shuffle the deck even more so long as their card remains second from the top. Turn over the top card to prove to your spectator that their card is not on top, and then place that card into the middle of the deck. Now the spectator's card should be on the top of the deck. After that, create 4 petal shapes with the cards and remove the rest of the deck. You know exactly where the spectator's card is, as it was on top of the deck, and so was the first card that you put down. What we're going to do now is something called Magician's Choice. Ask the spectator to point to any two piles. Let's say they point to these two. Since they've pointed to a pile with their card in it, just remove the other two piles, keeping the spectator's selection on the table. Had they not pointed to their own selection and chosen the other two piles, then you'd simply remove the other two piles that they actually pointed to. This means that regardless of the spectator's decision, their card will always remain on the table. Ask the spectator to point to another pile. In this case, they've pointed to their own pile, so you can remove the other pile by keeping their selection on the table. Had they pointed to the other pile in the first place, you would remove the other pile and the spectator's card would remain on the table. Now they're left with 4 cards, one of which is their card. Ask them to point to 2 cards. In this case, they pointed to these 2 cards, neither of which is their card. Therefore, you simply remove these 2 cards. Finally, tell them to push one card towards you. If they push their card towards you, say that's your selection and remove the other card. If they push the other card towards you, leaving their card alone, then you just remove the other card. Either way, they're left with their selection as the final card on the table. The way this trick works is you don't let the spectator know what's going to happen to the pile they point to. If they point to a pile with their card in it, you keep that pile on the table. If they point to a pile without their card in it, you then remove that pile.